My brother gave my daughter expired candy on Halloween, then laughed when she threw up. My parents called me overdramatic. It was supposed to be a simple Halloween night. My daughter, Lila, had twirled in her sparkly fairy wings all afternoon, counting down the minutes until trick-or-treating started. She was 6. Bright-eyed, sweet, and so trusting of every, especially my family. We arrived at my parents' house like we always did. My brother Brian greeted us at the door with his usual smug grin, holding out a big bowl of candy. "Special treats for the kids," he winked. Lila beamed, reached in, unwrapped a shiny lollipop, and popped it in her mouth. She threw up less than 5 minutes later. Right there, all over her glittery shoes and the welcome mat. And Brian? He laughed. So did my parents. "Relax, it's just candy," my dad said, still recording. "You're so sensitive." That night, something in me cracked. But it wasn't just the candy. It was realizing they didn't care who they hurt, as long as it got them a laugh. Have you ever felt betrayed by the very people meant to protect your child? What would you do if your own family laughed while your daughter sobbed? Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it hit home. Growing up, I was always the serious one. The one who read too much, cried too easily, and never knew how to take a joke. At least that's what my parents told me. My younger brother Brian, on the other hand, was the family clown. The golden boy. He could do no wrong, even when he crossed the line, again and again. He once replaced my shampoo with blue food colouring the day before my middle school graduation. I walked on stage with greenish hair, and he got a standing ovation at dinner for the prank of the year. When I protested, Mum just smiled and said, "It's Brian, he's harmless." And so, he kept getting away with more. Meaner, louder, more humiliating. I moved out the moment I turned 18, put myself through community college, and later became a preschool teacher. Then came Lila. My daughter changed everything. She made me softer in ways I never expected. She also made me stronger. After her father left before she was even born, it was just me and her. And I swore I would protect her from everything I never got protected from. But raising her alone wasn't easy. So sometimes against my better judgment I brought her around my family, hoping maybe they'd changed, hoping maybe they'd show up for her, if not for me. Halloween was one of those times. Brian had called me 3 days before, saying, "Bring Lila to Mum and Dad's. We're doing a fun little trick-or-treat setup for the kids in the neighbourhood." He made it sound wholesome. He made it sound safe. But looking back, I should have known. Because for Brian, fun usually meant someone else's pain. And that night, he set his sights on my daughter. Halloween night started off sweet. Lila held my hand as we walked up to my parents' front steps. She was practically bouncing in her glittery shoes, her wings catching the porch light. "This is the best day ever, Mommy," she whispered. I smiled. "Wait until you see what Grandma and Uncle Brian set up." That was the hope, anyway. Brian swung the door open like a magician performing a trick. "Boo!" he shouted, wearing a cheap Dracula cape and plastic fangs. Lila giggled. "Hi, Uncle Bri-Bri." He knelt, ruffling her hair. "Look at you, a fairy princess. Well, we've got royal treats for royalty." That's when he pulled out the big metal bowl, filled to the brim with colourful candy wrappers. At first glance, it looked festive. Familiar brands, shiny packaging. "Go on," he said, holding it toward her. "Take your pick, kiddo." I watched her reach in, grab a shiny red lollipop, and unwrap it carefully. She always took her time unwrapping candy, like it was part of the fun. She popped it into her mouth. And almost immediately, I saw her expression change. She went pale. "Sweetheart," I said, kneeling beside her. She blinked rapidly. It tastes funny. She didn't even get the sentence out before she doubled over and vomited. Right there on the doorstep. Pink glittery costume, white sparkly tights, all of it soaked. She cried, eyes wide in shock and confusion. Brian backed up, waving his hand in front of his nose. Damn, that was fast, he said, laughing. Okay, that's disgusting. Then I heard my dad chuckling behind him. You got that on video, right? He asked my mom. Oh yeah, she said, her phone pointed directly at us. That's going viral for sure. Fairy princess goes exorcist. I froze. You were filming? Lila sobbed harder. I scooped her up. We're leaving. Oh, come on, Brian called. It was just a little expired candy. She barely even swallowed it. Relax. Expired? I turned. You gave her expired candy. Technically, it's still food, just a few years old, still sealed. My voice trembled, but not from fear, from rage. She's 6, Brian. She trusted you. And that's the problem, he scoffed. You coddle her too much. A little bath never hurt anyone. I looked at my parents. Mom shrugged. She'll be fine. It's Halloween. Kids puke all the time. You think this is normal? Please don't start, Dad said. Every time you come over, it's drama. Every time. Because every time they did something awful, I reacted. And that was the real crime to them reacting. I carried Lila down the steps. Her costume was ruined. Her candy bucket was empty. Her smile was gone. But even worse than the humiliation, worse than the betrayal, was the complete lack of remorse. No one followed us out. No one asked if she was okay. They went back inside, probably replaying the video and laughing over wine. That night, I stayed up next to Lila's bed. She'd cried herself to sleep, a cold compress on her forehead. I checked the wrapper from the candy. The expiration date? October, 10 years ago. I googled the brand. They had recalled that entire batch for possible contamination. I saw red. He didn't just prank her. He could have poisoned her. The next morning, I confronted them in our family group chat. Brian gave Lila expired candy. She got sick. That wasn't a joke. That was dangerous. Mum, it was sealed. She's fine now. Don't be so emotional. Dad, maybe next time don't dress her like a baby. She needs a stronger stomach. Brian, LOL. Tell her Uncle Bree says sorry she can't handle real candy. Next year, I'll just give her broccoli. And that's when I knew. They weren't just careless. They were cruel. And they wanted me to know it. Because in their eyes, the real crime wasn't the stunt. It was me daring to hold them accountable. I didn't respond. I just deleted the group chat. Lila had a low fever for 2 days. I kept her hydrated, let her sleep, and told her she was brave for saying the candy tasted weird. She asked if we'd go back next Halloween. I smiled. We'll make our own Halloween, one where only nice people get invited. She nodded, not realizing the weight of what I meant. But I did. I meant it for her. And I meant it for me. Because that was the moment I decided I was done. Not just with Halloween. With all of it. For weeks, I kept my distance. No calls, no visits. I ignored the texts my mom sent asking if Lila was over it yet. I blocked Brian's number completely. And it was quiet. Peacefully quiet. Lila healed faster than I did. Kids are resilient like that. She started smiling again, drawing fairy wings on every school art project, asking if we could make our own candy night next Halloween, just us. But I didn't sleep well. My mind kept replaying the scene. My brother's laughter, my parents' cameras, Lila's tearful face. The way they mocked her, like she was just some character in one of Brian's skits. I didn't want revenge at first. I just wanted closure. But then, life handed me something else. It happened on a rainy Thursday while I was cleaning out my inbox. I stumbled across an email thread Brian had accidentally forwarded to me months ago when asking for help designing a logo. He'd used my old Canva account to mock up a design and left the whole conversation history below it. The emails? They were correspondence between Brian and a freelance marketing team. He was launching a brand, kid-safe treats, an all-natural, allergy-friendly candy line for toddlers and kids. That's right. The same man who fed my child expired candy as a joke was promoting himself as a wellness-conscious entrepreneur with slogans like, "A safer sweet for your little ones." Because kids deserve better. I froze. His product website was live, shiny, professional, filled with staged photos of happy kids. Fake reviews, bought followers, a glowing blog post supposedly written by a mom of 3, which I later traced back to one of his college buddies. It was all a lie. He was using children his own niece to build a business persona that didn't match who he was. And no one knew. Not his investors. Not his social media following. Not the dozens of parenting influencers he was courting with press kits. But I knew. And suddenly everything clicked. He didn't just humiliate Lila. He used her pain as content while pretending to be the kind of man who would protect children. That's when the shift happened. This wasn't just about Halloween anymore. This was about who he really was and who he was pretending to be. So I did what I do best. I started gathering evidence, quietly, carefully, like building a puzzle. I screen recorded the video my mom had posted briefly on Facebook before she deleted it. I had saved copies of the group chat. I downloaded his website. I printed every review, cross-checked every image to see which ones were stock. Then I reached out to a friend, Amara, a fellow single mom I met through Lila's daycare. She worked in branding and content protection, and her partner was a lawyer. When I showed them what I had, they were both silent. Amara finally said, "He's going to get someone's kid seriously hurt one day." Her partner added, "If he's using fake claims on a children's product, that's not just unethical, it's criminal." They helped me draft a report not to the police, but to the Consumer Product Safety Commission and Federal Trade Commission. They also helped me write a cease and desist letter demanding that Brian remove any implied endorsements from me or Lila. But that wasn't all. Because Brian was trying to court real investors, and one of them, I discovered, was a parenting startup I followed on Instagram. They had reposted one of his videos. So I messaged them, privately, respectfully. I sent them the clip of Leela getting sick. I blurred her face but left the voices untouched. Brian's laughter, my mother's "this is gold," the unmistakable sound of a child crying. I added only one sentence. "This is the man behind kid-safe treats. I just thought you'd want to know who you're promoting." They removed the post within 24 hours. Then came the backlash. Brian called me. 12 missed calls in a row. Then a voicemail that started polite and ended in screaming. "You're ruining my life. I finally had something going." No apology. Not once. Just, "You're jealous. You're bitter. And you're dragging me down because you're stuck being a boring mom." That voicemail? I saved it. Because what came next was unexpected. My parents showed up at my doorstep. In person. Mom looked tired. Dad looked annoyed. "Can we come in?" she asked. "No," I said. "We just want to talk." "I don't." Mom sighed. "You didn't have to go this far. You embarrassed your brother. You humiliated the whole family." I laughed. "Humiliated? You filmed my daughter vomiting and thought it was funny. Brian fed her garbage and called it a joke. And now you're worried about your reputation? Dad chimed in. That video never should have been online, but you didn't need to send it to people. She didn't ask to be part of his brand. I snapped. She didn't ask to be hurt, then turned into a meme. They didn't have anything to say after that. So I shut the door. And just like that, I had drawn the line. I chose peace over performance. I chose my daughter. The brand, it crumbled. His website quietly went offline. The social media pages were taken down. The investors pulled out. And a small online parenting blog published a story about the controversy. They never named me or Lila, but they described the incident. And it was enough. Brian called one last time. This time he didn't yell. He just said, "I hope you're happy." I didn't answer. I just blocked the number. Because the truth was, no, I wasn't happy. I was finally free. The silence after I blocked Brian should have felt satisfying. But it didn't, not right away. There was still weight in my chest, like something unfinished was dragging behind me. Yes, his business collapsed. Yes, my daughter was safe. But the root of the pain? It was deeper. It wasn't just Brian. It was my parents. The people who had stood by, who filmed, who laughed, who told me I was too sensitive when my child cried. And I knew if I didn't confront them directly, I'd never be free. The opportunity came 2 weeks later. My cousin Melissa was getting married. Small backyard ceremony. Lila was invited as a flower girl, and I had agreed to come, only after confirming Brian would not be attending. But my parents would be there. I told myself I could smile, stay distant, be polite. I was wrong, because when Lila walked down the aisle, her white dress sparkling in the golden afternoon light, my dad leaned over to a guest behind him and whispered, "Let's hope she keeps it together this time," and laughed. Just loud enough. Just long enough. Lila didn't hear it. But I did. After the ceremony, I pulled them aside. "You think that's funny?" I asked, my voice calm but sharp. "What you just said?" Mom blinked. "What?" "It was just a joke." "There it is again," I said. "Just a joke. That's what you always say. When you film my daughter throwing up, when you laugh while she's scared, when you call me overdramatic for caring." Mom straightened. "You always turn everything into a crisis." I shook my head slowly. "No, I'm just done pretending your behavior is normal." Dad scoffed. "So what, you're cutting us off?" I met his eyes. I already did. The silence hit like a dropped glass. "You made your choice," I continued. "You chose to mock your granddaughter. You let Brian humiliate a child and called it content. And when I stood up for her, you called me dramatic. But the truth is, you don't get to play victim now." Mom's mouth trembled. "We're still her grandparents." "No," I said. "Grandparents protect. They show up. They apologize when they've hurt someone. You haven't done any of that. You've done nothing but try to shame me for not letting it slide." "We didn't mean to." "You meant to laugh," I cut in. "And you did. But I'm done letting you in just because we share blood." I turned to walk away. Then I stopped. "By the way," I said, not even turning back, "Lila's birthday is next month. Don't worry about sending anything." They didn't respond. And they didn't show up. Not for her birthday, not afterward. But this time, I didn't cry. Because this time, we had everything we needed. I threw Lila the kind of birthday party I used to dream of as a child. A backyard picnic, a candy scavenger hunt, a unicorn-shaped piñata, people who loved her, friends from school, my co-workers and their kids. And when it was time for cake, I held her hand and asked, What kind do you want next year? She grinned, mouth full of frosting. Same one, but more sprinkles. That night, after the guests left and she fell asleep with a balloon tied to her wrist, I sat on the porch and breathed in the quiet. And I realized something important. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about value. For the first time in my life, I had chosen peace over proximity. I had chosen my daughter's safety over tradition. I had broken the cycle. And even though it still hurt to know my own parents would rather call me dramatic than protect their grandchild, it hurt a little less knowing I had done what they never could. I stood up. I said no. I defended the child instead of dismissing her. And if that makes me overdramatic, so be it. I'd rather be dramatic than silent. I'd rather be hated than complicit. Because one day, Lila will grow up and remember that night on the porch, not for the vomit, not for the laughter, but for what came after. The cake. The party. The mother who said, "Enough." 3 months have passed. Not a word from Brian. Not a letter from my parents. And yet, my world has never felt more full. Lila laughs more now. Not the nervous, tentative giggle she used to do when we were around my family, the kind that waited for approval. No, this laughter is hers. Wild, loud, free. She started calling our home our castle. She draws us as Queensme with a crown made of stars, her with wings that sparkle. Sometimes she draws a big dark cloud in the corner and writes one word over it. Yuck! That's what she remembers of Halloween. And honestly, that's okay. Because it means she remembers. Not just the bad, but the part that came after. The healing. The truth. I've learned that silence can be an act of protection, but sometimes speaking up is the real shield. It was never about ruining anyone. It was about drawing the line. About saying, you don't get to harm my child and call it love. You don't get to dress cruelty in humour and expect applause. And you definitely don't get to be called family just because you share our blood. Lila doesn't ask about them anymore. She's stopped bringing up Brian or Grandma or Grandpa. She used to in quiet questions. Will they be nice next time? Or did they mean it? Now she just says things like, I like our life. And I do too. Because I've stopped waiting for apologies that won't come. I've stopped shrinking myself just to fit back into places I outgrew. And I've stopped defending people who never once defended us. My peace didn't come from revenge. It came from letting go. It came from baking a new cake in a quiet house, filled with real love, not fake laughs. And this time, the only thing that went viral was my daughter's smile. If you've ever had to walk away from family to protect your peace or your child's safety, know this. You are not wrong. You are not overreacting. You are not alone. We share these stories because sometimes strength looks like silence, and sometimes it sounds like no more. Please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. And above all, keep choosing peace. Every single time.